Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the year for the Milwaukee Tableau user group. If you're new or maybe, because we only have quarterly meetings, you forgot, the Milwaukee Tableau user group is run by 4 individuals. And you can see our photos right here on the screen that I'm sharing. Oh, wait, can you guys see my screen? I don't know why I don't have the green bar around
we see it.
Okay, sorry. So my name is Brandy Beals. We also have Patrick DeLugosh, Olga Rosales, and Josh Connor are the folks that, in their free time, volunteer to support and host and arrange meetings for the Milwaukee Tableau user group. So welcome. Bruce, a common attendee, asked if we can see the list of other attendees. I don't believe so, because this is a particular kind of Zoom meeting called a webinar, where there's just kind of select people that can share their video and who you can see. So sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in and kick this meeting off. The agenda for today. So we're kind of in the thick of it already. We're doing our kickoff. And in just a moment, we're going to do an audience profile where we're going to want to learn a little bit about you. So we're going to use a polling tool to do that. And then we've got the event of the day, which is our visualization bonanza, I'm calling it, because I think it's a great word. It gets underutilized. But we've got 3 awesome presenters today who are going to be demoing and sharing different types of visualizations. So we've got some beginner, intermediate, and advanced visualization types. So really exciting. I mentioned it in the beginning, but I'll mention it again. The Q&A window is where you can post questions for our presenters. They will try to answer them during the event today. And that's how we're going to pick our winners. So we have 3 awesome prizes to give away today. We're going to pick those winners from the Q&A panel. So the chat window is for fun banter, Q&A for questions. Cool. After the main show, the main event, we're going to talk just briefly about some upcoming events, and then we're going to do our giveaway. So hopefully everyone is as excited as I am. So this is where we want to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm going to post the link to this poll in the chat window. You can also, if you prefer to take your smartphone, you can open up your camera and point it at this QR code, and a link or a banner should pop up. You can click on that and be taken to the poll as well. So hopefully everybody's getting that up and going. And the first question should already be on your screen, I think. Is this the first question? Sorry, stand by. Patrick, do you want to run this?
Sure. So does your organization have Tableau server? Looks like most of us do. Wow, that's amazing. I'm not sure that we would have had those types of results a couple of years ago.
Oh, sorry. Great.
All right, let's go on to the next question. How long has the organization used Tableau? 10 or more years, 5 to 10 years, 1 to 4, less than a year, or don't have Tableau yet? All right, so 1 to 4 is getting a lot, and 5 to 10 seems to be where most of the votes are. I know Northwestern Mutual, where I'm at, we've had it 8 years. For those of you that don't have it yet, hopefully you're in the process of getting it, or maybe evaluating it, and maybe this meeting will help you in that process. Certainly, if you have any questions about getting Tableau, put them in the chat, or you can reach out to any of us directly. Does your organization have a set of standards, like set colors or fonts that its Tableau visualizations must follow? Or are you able to just go in and pick your own colors and format it as you want to? So most of us don't, but I'd say it's pretty even. We have some flexibility at Northwestern Mutual, not completely standardized. If you could travel back in time 20 years, what would you most likely do? Buy stock in Apple, go to a Prince concert, have the courage to ask your crush out, or tell my younger self to keep an eye out for Tableau? It might be cut off for some of you, but it says, tell my younger self to keep an eye out for Tableau. Yeah, buy a stock in Apple seems to be a pretty good idea, but we're not going to get a chance to see Prince anymore. That's a bummer for me. Or maybe most of us did ask our crush out. Maybe that's what's going on there.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. I think that's it. Thank you.
Are we at the end? Okay.
I think so, yeah. I mean, yes, I believe so. Thanks,
all right,
Patrick.
Thanks for participating.
Yeah. It's always fun to get to know everybody in the group. And if you came to some of our Tableau user group meetings a few years ago when the group just got started, I think this is our sixth or seventh year doing this. We used to go around the room and everybody would say their name and where they're from, and it was great. But eventually we got so big that it would literally take up half the time of the meeting to go through introductions. So unfortunately, we've had to do away with that in lieu of knowing who wishes that they would have had the courage to ask their crush out. So, but it is fun because we do get to learn a little bit more about the people we have in the audience. So thank you so much for participating. So this is Tour of Wisconsin. I clearly forgot to change the title of this slide. I apologize. This is the Visualization Bonanza panelists. So we've got 3 awesome presenters today. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to Olga to introduce them.
Thank you. So we do indeed have 3 amazing presenters today. And I actually really miss the introductions that we used to do. I get it, our meetings were super long then, but it is so amazing to find out what everybody's doing. New insight, you gain new insights, or you see some camaraderie and maybe somewhere where you can get help. So to find out more about you, we hope that in the future that you all will also participate, bring something to our attention. It's so interesting to get to know our members and find out how our members are actually using Tableau. So to start us off, Jennifer Rash is going to start us off today. So we're going to provide some what we'll call beginning, intermediate, and advanced visualization looks at visualization. So when we did our poll, we found out that visualization and analytics were really 2 of the high points. So we're starting out with some visualization here. Next meeting, we're going to dive more into visualization with analytics. But Jennifer's going to start us off, and Jennifer is all about design. She has a company that focuses on design. It's actually very cool. She helps people to communicate using design. She'll probably mention that she works with the storytelling in data. And I will go ahead and kick it off to you, Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Rash, and I'm an independent designer here in Milwaukee, and I help my clients communicate complex information. Sometimes that can take the form of data visualizations. Most of what I have done, though, has not been in Tableau, so I am definitely a Tableau beginner. And from what I've experienced with Tableau, I would say that it's a little dangerous because I feel like you can go pretty far with just experimenting, dragging and dropping to kind of get where you want to go, but without maybe completely understanding how it's working and what's happening. So I was really excited to put this presentation together because it was kind of a chance to just dial it back and go back. And what I'm going to show you is basically a basic bar chart and a basic line chart, and just the step-by-step on building those. So beginner visualizations. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I went to Kaggle and I downloaded a data set for video games. I thought that would be kind of fun. And I will show you just from the very beginning, opening up just you have a new book to start an exploratory visualization. And to connect to the data, Tableau shows you over here what types of data that it allows. I have an Excel file, so I'll just click on Microsoft Excel and open it up. And it pops in there as a nice table. I can see everything clearly, and I can jump right in to go to my worksheet here. And what's pretty handy is that Tableau sorts your data so that you have this gray line, and it has the dimensions up above and the measures down below. So you have your more continuous data is going to be sitting down below and discrete data up above. And what I might want to look at here to begin with as a bar chart is looking at genre sales. So sales by genre. I can come in here and take my genre and pop it up here into the columns and come down here to sales and pop it into the rows. And Tableau is automatically going to recognize that a visualization that would work for this would be a bar chart. So it pops everything in. One thing I noticed though is that it is defaulting to alphabetical, which is not necessarily the quickest read for, what's doing the best. So you can actually hop up here to the sorting, and you can either sort ascending or descending. So I'm going to sort ascending. You can see here that sports and action are really big. Strategy, maybe not so much. But I think we can make this a little bit more telling of the story, perhaps. And a great place to start with that is really just your title. So let's say we're talking about this and we want to emphasize the best performers. So we could say something like shooter, sports, and action are best performers. And that just tells you right away what we'll want to talk about. And we can also accent that, the importance of that. I'm actually going to do an entire view so we have a little more room with color. So you can go back here. We do have genre up here in columns, but we can grab it again and place it on our color card. And that gives us some colors to work with. Now, again, Tableau is just defaulting you to something that I think looks kind of crazy, this wild rainbow, which is not necessarily helping you understand what you're looking at, but you can go up here to the key and edit your colors. And you can select a palette. They have lots of palettes to choose from. I'm going to grab this one. It has a nice orange highlight color. And what I want to do is really emphasize our 3 best performers. So I'm going to start by bringing all these guys down to a a very basic gray. And then I'm going to max, so I'm able to hold down my command key and I can do multiple selections that way. So I'm going to grab my sports, shooter, and action and make those highlight orange. So that immediately just makes it a little bit easier to read. And now looking at this, I see that this legend is probably not so useful anymore because I've kind of taken all the usefulness out of the key. I'm going to go ahead and hide it just to give us some more room. Another piece of information that might be handy to know is, well, what are the average sales? So we can come over here, we have our data tab open, but we can click on our analytics tab and grab an average line. That we can drag right over here and pop it onto table. So now we see just how much these top performers are performing. So this is just a basic bar, but I think you have a lot of tools to tell a story with a basic bar. And then one thing that I think is a good idea once you're getting it where you want it to is to look through and see, well, what's extraneous or what's maybe not super clear? What can we get rid of that doesn't help our story? I don't think we need this word genre up here because I think people are pretty familiar with video game genres. So I'm just gonna hide it. And then we may want to be more specific with our global sales. So we may want to say something like global sales in millions, just to clarify. So that is an example of a bar, but we may want to look further into our data and explore maybe sales performance. So we can actually go ahead and open up a new sheet. We have our same data here, but a whole new sheet to work with. And in this case, what I'm going to do is look at something more about sales over time. So if I bring my year up to this column, so it's going to populate my x-axis with the years, and then come over here to sales, pop that in the row. And again, Tableau is going to default, since this is a continuous data over time, it's defaulting to a line chart, which is going to be an appropriate chart for this type of information. And one thing I'm seeing that's kind of wacky is that there's this flat line, like there's missing information here. So I can even go back and just try to see like what's going on there. And I can sort my data here. And as I see, it looks like actually there's not really data past 2016. So if I want to fix that, one way to do it, I could take my year again and drop it up here into filters, which is going to allow me, so right now it's going to 2020, but I can actually limit that and filter it to just 2016, which helps get rid of that weird thing at the end. So I may want to go more in depth though and compare these different regions. One way to do it would be to take these, pop them up here. We have EU, Japan. That's going to create multiple charts that you can compare, and that's one way. But what if I want everything in the same chart? One way you can do that is to come over here and actually hover over this axis and drop. And then it automatically populates into the chart. So I can take all of these, bring them over. And we don't really need that global line in there now. So we can actually come here to the measure values and remove it. So now we have a little bit of clear idea of how our regions are performing. It's obvious that North America is really, or at least was, really performing well, and they all kind of took a dive here. So again, we would want to think about what we're trying to talk about here with this chart. And a great place to start is your title. So maybe we say North America is strongest regional, something like that. And again, we probably can use color to better effect as well. So I can come up here and edit our colors. Again, this palette has a lot of good neutrals I can work with, because in this case, I think it's still valuable to keep the lines identified by color, but I still want to kick back the ones that aren't the focus of my chart. So I can go here to North America and make that the highlights, and then have the other ones kind of in descending order with the neutrals here. Oops, that didn't work. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so now we've got North America is really popping, and these other ones less so, but you're still able to kind of differentiate between them. But now this legend is kind of weird here because of its title. I could change it to something like sales regions. And also, I'm not so crazy about the ordering here. I can actually go in here and sort, so that instead of this default, I can actually manually say, well, I want North America to be on the top and have everything grade 8 down. So that just makes a little more sense. And then again, you can do the same thing of trying to simplify a bit. I think we all know these are years, so we don't need that word year in there. And value can probably be a little more clear. You could say sales in months. And then depending on how specific you need to be showing things, you might not always need this grid back here. If you're just trying to show a general trend of something, you might be able to get away with getting that out of there and have like a cleaner looking graph. So you can actually just right click here, go to format, go up to your lines, grid lines, and just say none. And then it's just a bit of a cleaner look. So that is a basic bar chart and line chart. And I'm happy to field any questions on it if anybody has any. See there
Awesome.
in the Q&A.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah,
Sure.
and Olga will moderate some of the questions. I guess I just wanted to, before I feel like I'm just using my position of power to like just chime in. But I just wanted to say that like I love how just a simple bar chart and trend chart, especially when you layer the formatting on top of it, can just like, you know, go from 0 to hero. Like I love that. And especially your approach and highlighting specific things and adding like commentary almost to the title, I think is just phenomenal. So that's just my only comment. But I'll turn it over to Olga for some questions.
I will also comment. I do love the use of your colors. I can obviously see you have an eye for design, and you know the orange is the highest, the best in both of them. So I think that consistency is really good. We do have a few questions coming in. So here's a question from Heidi. Is there a way to use icons or images on the charts?
There is, and I've actually done it. I did it in a different chart that I've worked on before where I really wanted custom little icons to pop in there. And it would take me a little while to retrace my steps and be able to explain it. But yes, absolutely. You can sub in like a almost like a charts, an icon set. You can sort of swap it in and use it in addition to sort of like the ones that are already kind of preset as options within Tableau.
And so something about Tableau, it's very customizable. I think when we were talking about the color palette, you can create your own color palette very easily. Another question we have is, instead of drag and drop on the regions, could you have used dual axes, sorry.
I think you could. For this, I was trying to keep everything super basic.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's possible that would be a better way to show it. I guess I'd have to see it.
But I think you can only do 2 measures and you have 4 that you're trying to show. So like, I think like a dual axis, you can only do like 1 measure on one side and another measure on the other side. This approach allows you to use any number of measure fields.
Mhm.
I have a question. How did you learn? What were what's your training in Tableau?
I have learned by just using it. I mean, I've gone through, there's so many resources out there today for learning. I spent a lot of time kind of going through all the tutorial resources they have on the Tableau website just to get started. But at some point you end up trying to build something like, one great way that I've learned is that I belong to an organization or a community, a group called Storytelling with Data. And it's an online community and they have monthly challenges. And so I feel like one of the hardest things when you're trying to learn something and you're experimenting is like, well, where do you start? Like, what do you make? It's sort of like this blank canvas can stress you out. And that solves that problem in a way, because it's just like, okay, what's the challenge? And then a lot of times the challenges, it's appropriate to solve them with Tableau. And then you're in it, and then you're messing around with it and trying to solve it. That's how I figured out that thing that was a Storytelling with Data challenge. And my solution, I really wanted custom icons. And so, it was just trial and error until I figured it out. But that's a great way to learn.
I agree. So don't be afraid, right? You can't break the Tableau application.
No.
And you might just get what you want if you start dragging things around and playing with measures and so on.
You might not be able to remember how you got what you want.
Yeah, but eventually you'll be like, oh, that click is what did it. I'm a serial clicker, so that happens to me all the time. Another question is, how do you highlight one specific point on the line?
I also have seen that. What was I trying? I was trying to figure that out for something.
Yep.
And I am not even sure if I fully figured it out, because I could tell that it was happening, but then it didn't stay highlighted when I navved off of the setup. So I'm going to guess that is definitely something that you can do. I think I was trying to put, because instead of having a legend, like having names by the lines, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and as with Tableau, there's so many different ways, I think, to do it. So let's see. So there was also, I just want to let you know, since we were talking about custom palettes on the chat, someone did link, LS linked to how you can create the custom palette. And also, let's see, Christina, I think she let us know that, tell me if I'm saying this wrong, Udemy has great courses for newbies for Tableau. So that's amazing. And Tableau is pretty self-explanatory. It does its best to be to anticipate what you need, and it'll definitely help you out. Well, thank you, Jennifer. Really great presentation. I think that people can take this and kind of duplicate what you did if you're beginning. And thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. This was fun to put together.
Awesome. We're going to move to our next presenter. Ashley Zick is going to present next. So Ashley her expertise lies in user experience, and she does data visualization consulting. She's also an instructor at MSOE, and she has a unique background in cognitive psychology and and design, and she brings that in for her design, and my guess is she brings it in to analyze her class students as well. But and she's a great believer in storyteller. So I'll go ahead and Ashley.
Thanks for the intro. Yeah, so my name is Ashley, or Ash. I wear a lot of hats right now. I'm the director of user experience for MRS, so we're a life insurance company, and we're really getting into a lot of these data and analytics, so that's super exciting. But aside from that, and long term, I've been a data visualization consultant, and I'm an adjunct professor at MSUE. I teach a data visualization class in Tableau. So today I'm going to be doing an intermediate level, kind of a silly one, so hopefully everybody appreciates that. I actually had to vet it with Brandy, make sure it was okay. She said it was fine. So
it is a Friday meeting, so.
Fair enough. Can you see my screen? All right, so this is a screenshot from the original file. I just did a screenshot because I didn't want all the formatting and everything to carry over. But whoever tossed out GME stock earlier, good news. What we're going to be learning is how to do a table with Sparklines within the sheet itself. So I've seen people do Sparklines and a table on a dashboard and not within one sheet. The big downside to that is if you have more than, I've only got 6 here, but if you've got 20 or 30 lines, those won't scroll together. So by making it just one, you'll be able to do these Sparklines within a table. I chose stocks because stocks are pretty frequently where I see Sparklines, but any trend of data that you think a Sparkline would work will work well here. So prices, dates, anything that's really that continuous line segment. It wouldn't work as well for something like categories. All right, so I imported my date source here, which is just stockprices.csv. Let me change this. So I've got my stocks, my dates, and then some other things. It's a pretty simple set of data, so we're going to be doing some calculated fields here to figure out other things that we'll need. So let's start with just a basic table here. So I've got my stocks and my 2 years from 2020 and 2021. So, and you'll notice on this filter, it only goes to January 2020. So I'd probably give this a better name besides month, but let's take this now, and we've got our table, and I actually want to bring in, I don't know, some sort of data. So I'm going to go high, but you can do whatever you'd like. So when I drag high over, I'm actually going to change this to max. So I click on this down arrow, I go to measure, and you have a bunch of different measures here. Sum is the one that comes by default, and so a sum is going to go through and add everything for that level. If I did an average, it's going to take the average for each date, the median count. This would just be a number. So if you have 3 files for that date, it would be 4. And we're going to do max. So what that's doing is it's looking at the high or the maximum high price for each day. So in my data set, it actually doesn't matter that much because you'll notice I have 1 line here for each date. But if this was more complex stock data, you might have multiple times during the day, in which case you'd have multiple rows. So that's where some of these table calculations can really come in handy. So these still aren't super interesting lines because it's just looking at 20 and 2021. So I'm going to change my year to exact date. There's a lot of different ways you can measure your different kinds of dates. And if you've got it set up in a hierarchy, you can also use this little plus here. And you'll see it goes year to quarter to month to even day. I'm just going to back out of all of that. And then I'm going to switch to exact date. So you'll see now I've got a lot more detail in that Sparkline. So I guess kind of a pro tip here, and this is something that probably took me way too long to realize, is that once you remove all the borders and everything else, it's a lot harder to resize. So I like to try and get some of the resizing done before I go and do any of the formatting. If anybody has a great tip for resizing once you've gotten rid of all the formatting and it's looks more like this, I would love that tip because I always forget about that and then I have to go add all my borders back so I can figure out how to resize it again. So we've got our table here of different lines. So let's first set up the Sparklines and then we'll add our other data. So in true Sparkline format, you really don't use a lot of headers or other things. a sparkline shouldn't really be used to get complex information. If I absolutely need to know the date or the max, you should probably be using a line chart or something that has some of this data. A sparkline really is just a nice visual representation of a trend. So for instance here, even without labels, I can see that yes, while GME went to the moon here, there's actually another stock that the subreddit who's been doing all this likes, which is Tesla, that actually would have been a much better bet. So I'm going to quickly remove some of these borders. So that's under format, borders. Let's take our row divider, which is down here, and go none. I don't know why my version of Tableau has this line here. I've updated it. Yours probably will not be crossed out, I hope. So you can see now we've got our row borders and our column borders removed. I want to go ahead and remove these other two ones here. So this is a 0 line and this is a reference line. So I'm going to go over to lines instead of borders, because borders are around the outside and lines are on the inside. So if I go there and then I go to sheet, I can remove my 0 lines. And a lot of this is a lot of trial and error. Drop line. Getting there, hopefully. Oh, why are you here? Let's try row, grid line. All right, got it. There's a lot of formatting options in here. I've been using Tableau for years and honestly still don't remember what every single one of these are. So when you are going in here, it's kind of the nice power of Tableau is that you can experiment with a lot of this. Don't feel like you necessarily have to remember all of this because it does update here really nicely for you. So maybe you're a rock star who remembers all of those, but I clearly am not. So I'm going to finish the formatting later, depending on how long the rest of this takes. I think the important part, though, is making sure we get the table in here. Let me give my sheet a name. So what I'm going to use now are called window calculations. So this up here was a table calculation, and a table calculation does it on the entire table. A window calculation you do in a calculated field, and that actually goes through and sets up something within the window you set. So by default, it's just that row, but you could also change it. So you can add +1 or -1 or other, first element or other ways to grab that. Sometimes the little pop-up here for calculated field doesn't appear. Can I get like a head nod? Can you see that? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go and get my minimum, my maximum, and my average close. So we can start with average close. And so a lot of these are displayed in here. If you really want to go through and look for them, there's a ton of different things you can do with calculated fields. At this point, I pretty much know the dozen or so I use frequently and then go to the internet to look up the rest of them. But it is nice that they're all here. So we're going to be using window average. So again, here you can see what I was talking about, where the window is the current row, and then you can offset it if you want. So here's where it gets a little weird. I can't just type in my close. I need to actually have an expression here. So if this was a more complicated version, I would probably have more things in here. It feels a little weird that I'm basically doing an average of close, but that's because it requires an expression. And the reason it requires an expression is because, again, you can do that offset. So I click OK. Now, before I drag that over, I want to show why I'm doing this. So if I drag just high over here, and then I change it to average, I'm getting a second line. I could try changing it to discrete. I could try changing it to a dimension. I could try changing it to an attribute. The problem is it's still performing that calculation on every single one of these date points. And so the only way to really get one date point that I found that you can do consistently is by doing that window calculation. So when I drag this over, I'm going to convert it to discrete. And so what that just did is it looked at the average close for this row or this window, and it calculated across these roughly 250 bullet points what the average close for all of those was. And so that is kind of the nice power of a window calculation, in that I can do something just within this row. So I'm going to go a little bit faster and go ahead and do the same thing for low. So these are going to look very similar. Min. Using my parentheses. So you'll notice, let me take those out. I'm not sure everybody's level of familiarity with calculated fields, but the nice thing is that Tableau will try and help you. It'd be nice if they maybe had some spaces in their error message, but I can still see here the expected closing parentheses or comma, and it shows me where. So, personally, the thing I always mess up on is missing parentheses, so that's really helpful for at least me personally. Let's create one more. And again, I'm sure there's other ways to do this depending on how your data is formatted. There seems to be 12 things or 12 ways to do everything in Tableau. So if you've got a way to do this without window calculations, feel free to post that as well. This is just one way I found that consistently works. So again, I'm going to convert that to discrete and drag that over. One thing you'll notice when I drag this over is that I can't move it because it automatically separates my continuous and discrete. So if I wanted to put low price over here, but I didn't convert it, you know, I just can't do it. If I put it to discrete, now I've got my table with my sparklines. So again, I need a lot of formatting here, and I'll do some quick formatting. Maybe we won't go all the way to this one, but a couple more things we'll add. So the next thing I want to do is add a date filter. So I drag date over to filters. If you add just months, what it'll do is it'll do January, February, March, so on. But January 2020 and January 2020 and January 2021 will both be the same month. So I like using month year, so then that way it actually will add, you know, the 2020 or 2021. So a couple of different options here. If I don't want them to select October, I could select all and then unselect it, and they don't have that option. I could add my own custom list, but I'm going to let them use all. And then I click OK. Here is where my students personally get confused, is that they add that filter and then they think, great, now why can't I use it? It's kind of silly, but you have to do one more step. Make sure you click this down arrow and then show filter. If you don't do that, it won't appear. You can edit this title to maybe make a little more sense with this edit title. And then I'm just going to say month. Click OK. The last thing I want to make sure to show off is how to format these numbers correctly. And then if we have time, I can go through and do some of the other dashboard formatting, but I think this is a good starting place. So you'll notice that these are all very different numbers. Some of these have a ton of decimal points, but these are all currency. So I want to make sure that they are actually showing as currency. So I go here, again, that little drop down, and then default properties, and then number format. So it'll automatically try and do something. I can tell it it's a number. I can tell it's a currency, scientific, percentage. We're just going to do currency standard. And then I'll do the same thing for this one. And the same thing for this one. The last thing I want to do is make sure I take these three and I right align them. You know, they're numerical currency values, and traditionally in some sort of spreadsheet format, you right align these. So how you can do that is under format. Again, we've got a lot of different options here, but I'm going to go to alignment. You'll notice, again, I've got my sheet, my rows, my columns. I can also do it with fields, and then I click a specific field to be able to do that. So I'm going to right align these. So there was a question, I can kind of see some of the QA ones about, do we have to do a number calculation in this instance? You do have to, or window calculation, You do have to do that because when you drag something over, like let's do high price, even if I convert this to discrete, oh, I guess that worked. So yeah, you could do that. Oh wait, that's because it's that one. All right, high price is my window. I drag high over, and even if I change this to discrete, you'll notice it's still going to cause some issues. So there are potentially some data sets where you might not have to do a window calculation, but I found that window calculations are by far the easiest way to make sure you always get this. Do we want to go through any of the, I guess, other questions? Do you want me to quickly do some more date formatting?
I think this is great. And do we have any questions? If you have some questions, go ahead and put them in question and answer. I love Sparklines. Really, so many people compare numbers last month to this month or just current numbers, and to have that little peak available, well, literally or figuratively, the peak is really so informative. And you hit a lot of nice features, I think, quickly. And like you said, there's so many different ways to do it. And I found a new way of doing something during your presentation. So thank you for that. Okay, any questions at all?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions here. And since I didn't go through the formatting, I can send the original file, the Tableau public link, so people can download it and play around.
Okay, awesome.
For your
I do see the question, do you select Sparklines or do they come based on the formula or number format?
Yeah, great question. So Sparklines are essentially just lines. There's not like a show me around Sparklines specifically. You'll notice that the one that is highlighted here are lines discrete. So I found that if you do it in the order I did it, where you start with the lines, you don't have to select anything. But if you start with the table, you can just select the lines and then get that from there.
Awesome. And Ashley, do you include tooltips on the Sparklines or do you disable those?
Yeah, so I didn't format the tooltip in this instance, but I would probably include tooltips or format them a little bit better, or at least remove some of these, because somebody probably won't care about what's in here, but they might care about this point, or they might just want a general idea. So there's no harm in including tooltips. It doesn't really clutter up the screen, and it does provide some additional data if somebody is looking for more information.
Yep, I would agree. Well, thank you, Ashley. This is awesome information. And let's go ahead and we're going to go to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Sherry Creel. So Sherry works at Masterlock, a big partner in with the tug and in the Tableau community in general in the area. They hosted, they presented, presenting today, and have taken part in our visualization, our Viswar, which is awesome. And Sherry actually manages the revenue growth. She manages the revenue growth management and advanced analytics team at Masterlock. And her dashboards are highly visible and used by sales team and upper management. So Sherry, I'll let you go ahead and give us some looks at your advanced dashboards and how you use Tableau.
Yeah, so thank you. So my presentation is going to be a little bit different than everyone else's. It's not going to be as much building on the spot, but more talking about general concepts, and then also just displaying some of my most highly used reports. So I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, so this first report that I'm showing is actually the #1 report I've ever created. It's within our top 5 utilized reports at the company every single week. You know, I took a lot of the data away. Whoop, it's trying to reload, but I took a lot of, the names away so that you couldn't see some proprietary information. But basically what this report would say is, for the month that we're currently in, how much orders have come in so far that we have shipped, how much have come in that we haven't shipped yet, but should be shipping against? How much is that? And what did we forecast? So it's really letting the sales team know if they're making their plan or not. So then we have, categories. So at a high level, the ELT can see, if major categories at Masterlock are making plan or beating plan. So the sales plan is in this orange line, and then the black line is the forecast. So you can see we're having a really good month at Masterlock. And then we use color to kind of alert any anomalies. So if something is over 5% above a target, it will flag in blue. If it's within 5% of the forecast target, it will stay gray. It's kind of too close to call. We would say that this is probably going to make plan, but there's a chance it could miss or could overachieve. And then orange is below target. So the sales reps would know, oh, okay, I should probably call this customer because we're not going to hit our sales forecast for the month. So you can see we actually are having a pretty good month, but as you kind of scroll down, so there's no one specific director that's orange this month, which is great, but there's some accounts within that we might want to focus on and give a call or understand kind of why we're missing forecasts. The other cool thing about this chart, which has been really useful with the ELT, a lot of time executive leaders at your company do not want to necessarily open Tableau every day and look at it. They might not even always be around a computer. I know we're in COVID now, so more people are around a computer, but a lot of times they're at customer meetings, they're on their mobile devices, and they need to be able to answer questions. So you can create like a little, anything that has a numeric access, you can create an alert against. So this one I tried to make it more like indicator above target, but there's actually a numeric access down here that I formatted in white so that it's not really evident on the report. But you can highlight that access then and then create an alert. So I set kind of behind the scenes that if something was above target, its value would be equal to 2. And if it's below target, its value would be equal to 1. So from there, then I could click that little chart and create an alert. And if I want to be alerted every day, every time that I am meeting my sales plan, I can say, okay, if this access is above 2, then I would like you to name the email. Yay, we beat forecast. And send it to me daily at most. You can also create other recipients. So I'll just pick on my boss here. I know she's watching. So I could also send it to my boss every day. You can also make this alert visible to others so they can kind of tag onto it. So then you would create the alert and then you'll get emails every day if that target hasn't been met. You could also create the opposite. If it is below 2, that means it's probably not meeting forecast. So that subject would be, we're missing. So if it's below 2, then the subject would be missing forecast. And I can send it again to myself. And then I'll show you a little example of how that looks in your email. So this was an example, I don't have any examples of below target because when I created this, we were already quite above and weren't planning to miss, but I set this one to let me know if I was beating target, and then it sent this email to me from Tableau at umlock.com above forecast tug example, and then I get a quick snapshot of the dashboard where I could see, we are above target, but on this specific day, I had one director that was close, not beating, and I also had a customer down here that was under target. So I would know without even having to open Tableau or Tableau server that I should probably give those customers a call and see what's going on there. So yeah, and then along with alerts, this is probably actually a better report for a subscription. Most of our ELT is actually using subscriptions on this report and not alerts. Just because they just want to know what sales are every day. I think most companies are sales-based if for profit. So if you have a dashboard like that, the other option is you can subscribe yourself. So it will send me this view every single day. It can send it in an image and a PDF if you want to have like an attachment on your email. And then every Monday morning, it could send it to me. It could send it to me. These times are set up by your IT department. So these are the options we have available to us. But weekdays at 9, I could get this report every single day sent to me, which is, I think, an advanced analytics that's a little bit underutilized. The third thing that I would say that is advanced about this dashboard is something that we've seen quite a bit in the Q&A before, which is dynamic filters. So I have set this dashboard up so that one time a month, I can set the financial targets for the entire month. And every day those targets will change without me having to do anything to this report. And then also the other amazing thing is our IT department actually manages the data. So this report can go on. I could take a month vacation at Masterlock, not do anything to this report, and it would be running smoothly without me even being involved, which actually was kind of funny. I did get in an accident about a year ago and was off for 7 weeks. And we made it through, you know, a lot of days without me having to update this report. That, you know, it didn't cause a hiccup really, which is great. So I have some kind of step-by-step examples of how you would do something like this. So it's in the steps tab. So what you would do is I have an underlying Excel spreadsheet. So I kind of faked out the data. I didn't want to give everyone our real forecasts, but I'm going to tell the data that for this category and this account, my sales forecast is X and my sales plan is Y. And then every day I'm going to give it a target. So on the 15th, I want to be 93% of the way through the month. On the 16th, I want to be 93.5%. And on the 17th and the 18th and the 19th, I want to be 100% done with the month. So, I mean, by today, we can't really ship anymore. It's the end of our fiscal month, so everything should be at 100. I then have a formula that's timesing this percentage by the sales forecast. So this is a 200 here, this is 100 and 300. So it's giving me numerical values. So I found that Tableau does a lot better with numerical values in your data source than percentages. So it's going to read a lot easier if you have the true value of what you want that forecast to be versus the percentage. But for me, as an analyst, it's easier for me to think in percentages. I know a customer, if they only order from us once a week, I know in week 1, they should be 25%, week 2, they should be 50, week 3, 75, week 4, 100. So it's easier for me personally to set the targets as a percentage. So from there, then I take this underlying Excel spreadsheet and I open up Tableau Prep and I just pivot. So I pull in this field that's called Goal Forecast. I pull it into my pivot. And then it kind of flips my data. So now it's calling my goal forecast as a column, one column with all the numbers in it versus having it a bunch of columns across. It's more in the row field. And it calls that pivot names. Well, I would want to change. So what it does is it calls goal forecast. It calls the row goal forecast 2021-02-15. Well, that doesn't, I don't really need all that data. I just want to know that that is the date of 2/15. So it's smart enough to know that when I change that name to a date, then it just tells me, oh, that's 2/15/2021. Sorry, this is a lot of steps. But then after that's done, I have my clean forecasting data. I then bring that in as a data source in Tableau. And I create a filter that says, if the date of the pivot name, so of this forecast field, is the date of today, then true, else false. And then from there, I can say, okay, I only want to keep true values. So anything that's not today's date, I don't even care about that data. Don't show it to me, don't connect it to anything. I do not want that date. And then tomorrow, when we wake up, it's going to say, oh, now I'm going to pull 220 data, and we're only going to care about 220 data. So it's one way to have something change. So now this is changing for me for however long I set it. It's typically for us 4 to 5 weeks without me having to go in at all and change the target. So it's really nice. And then I'm filtering it at the data source. And then on top of it, there's some other things. I do have this built off a blend. So I worked, we have some really great IT partners. I worked and created some underlying kind of like categorization so that everything would connect to one another. But that's kind of how you do a dynamic filter, is you can create kind of true or false statements and then actually literally filter it at the data source level of your sheet. I'm going to go on to the next example, and then I'll answer questions about both, because there's probably a lot. My next example, this actually was inspired by a TUG meeting that I had where you guys had a Tableau Zen expert come in and talk about how she kind of overlaid charts on top of one another. And that, for me, really turned on a light bulb of all the things that I could do at Masterlock. So at Masterlock, we have all these certified data sources that IT makes for us that are amazing, but they're at very different levels of detail. So we might have a data source about all of our customer data. It's at the customer store level by week. Okay, that's great. I have another one of our inventory. It's at the org by item by week. So there's some similarities between the two, but I don't have org in this one. And then I have shipments, which is by day. Okay, that's also very different. There's a lot of levels to work with. So a lot of times people think that in order to display all of these data sources together, that you need to have the underlying data in Tableau connected at that level. And you don't. It helps if you do, but if that's not the case, what you can do is just create a bunch of charts that are lined up perfectly together and kind of display them on the same page. So this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data sources from IT, all displaying the same items. These are all metrics on this one row for one item. And I did not have to connect the data at all. So this is really good if you have 80-20 standards with your company, and we call them best of best items, that you only want to look at your top 4 customers, your top 10 customers, your top 20 items. Things are very specific that you have in every data source. You'll have it every single time. And I always want to look at item A first, and then item B, and then item C. You can line up your data and just pivot. You can just overlap the chart. So these are all different sheets that are literally just lined up perfectly. And then for cleanliness, I just whited out the headers so that we weren't looking at an entire chart of headers. But then the great part about this is you don't lose that underlying detail that you might really need to know. So for example, this item, we've had great sales. We're in a good inventory position. We're in stock, but we're in stock at the customer, but our week's supply has been low, and we've actually have late backlog because of it. So when you hover over, then I can see, okay, when is this going to be resolved? And it looks like in one of our orgs where we ship from, we're actually going to have issues on this item for another 3 weeks. Another org, we're perfectly fine. We're actually shipping and having no issues today. But overall, we'll probably be really in a good position on 3/14. So then I can tell the sales reps to tell their customers, okay, this is going to be solved on 3/14. But, I wouldn't have had org data for some of this other stuff. That just wouldn't have been in the data source if I wanted to. So it allows you to still keep those details you needed. So yeah, this is an example. We call it our super SKUs dashboard. It's just an item scorecard of our top items, how things have been selling. I filtered it down to a random subset, so this isn't necessarily our top items, but representative. It lets us know how they're selling at the customer level. Are they in stock or not at the customer level? Are they in stock at our level? Do we have the inventory to fill orders? Are we shipping? Are we canceling? Do we have backlog? And are we beating or over consuming to forecast? So for this one, you can see shipments are down. Well, it's driven by the fact that the trend is down. You know, we have plenty of inventory in store. We're not really canceling. We're not over consuming. This one is due to trend. There's other ones, you know, we're over consuming, but the inventory at the customer is fine. We've had some late backlog and maybe some cancellations on these two items, but we're really not in a bad position yet at our end consumer, and we're going to be recovered. So, you know, for these two items, the situation is only temporary and likely won't have an impact on our sales. So I think that's just an overall explanation, and I'll open it up to questions now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry. These are amazing. I love your use of the Viz and tooltips. That gives also so much more information if somebody's looking at it. I'm going to bring about a few questions. So when you are looking above and below for your target calculations in the Viz, are you looking at it for the whole sheet or for a specific category or row?
Yeah, so this specific one is set up for the whole sheet. If you wanted it only for your account, you would have to make this like able to be attached to a filter. Then you could set it up that way. I don't have a filter on this, but if you added a filter and you filtered to what you wanted and targeted this sheet, you would be able to do that then.
Okay. And then can you give a quick, what the difference is between an alert and a subscription?
Right. So an alert is driven by a data metric. So there has to be something that you've told the system that I want to know if something in my data happens. If this happens in my data, alert me, send me a message. A subscription it doesn't care what's going on with the data. It's just going to send it to you every day or whatever schedule you choose, either way.
Okay. And maybe one more here. So I think people are kind of amazed at how you got everything to line up from the different data sources. And I would say it's great that you didn't have to connect all those data sources. I find so many times I make mistake in my joins or wherever I'm doing things. So people have found this to be a struggle. Can you give any words of advice of how you made them line up or what you did?
So I created a set of the number of items that I wanted, which was 10. I knew that these items that we have metrics for them on every single chart, every single day. And then I put them in an order that was the same on every single chart. So I always had item A first, then item B, then item C. And I also too, I kind of like, you know, sometimes in your data, item A might be two things in one data. I would group those two together and let myself know, well, that really means one thing to me. So you just have to really have a clear vision of what you want from the get-go to be able to do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the looks of it. Oh, one more question that somebody had asked before. How do you know that people are using this? Do you keep track of it?
Yeah, so we actually have metrics. So if you're a creator at Masterlock, you can see who's viewed it's kind of a little big brother, but I can see who's viewed my data when, how many times. And we have, IT has set up dashboarding around our usage. And then they actually have like a report card that they publish every day, week, and month. That shows you like what are the top 10 most utilized dashboards yesterday, what were the top 10 last week, and what were the top 10 last month, and who created those dashboards, like how large is their audience, so how many people are viewing it, and then how many times are they viewing it. So they give everyone like a scorecard.
That's amazing. That's really good use of that information. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you, Jennifer and Ashley. Very insightful, and I'm assuming people are going to be reaching out to you, so get ready for some new Tableau friends. And I will kick it back to Brandy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, those were just some fantastic presentations. Just wow. I think it's so cool to see what you can do, just with a bar chart and a trend chart, and then how you can start to layer in other metrics. I mean, the Sparklines, they sound really cool and they are really cool, don't get me wrong, but they're basically just small trend charts, but to be able to pair them with, numerical data, I found when you have folks who are like super used to looking at data in a table or in Excel or something like that, that approach is just super helpful. And then Sherry takes it to the next level with like subscriptions and that just like making it super easy for people to get at the information that they need in like maybe a format that they're familiar with or on a regular basis where like they don't have to do anything to get it. So all really cool stuff. So to our presenters, thank you so much for joining us today. There are a few still open questions in the Q&A panel. If you do have a few minutes where you can like type in an answer, that would be fantastic. Thank you to everybody who asked questions, all really great information. Okay, so we have a few minutes left here in our meeting and we have a handful of things to get to. I'm gonna be posting a few links in the chat window because we have awesome events going on. The first event, that's kind of like a side event. It's the Data Book Club. We did like a round of a book club. We met virtually. We, read a book and met like 4 times or so over the course of 2 months. There's been a lot of interest in doing another one. So if you're interested, you can fill out the form at the link that I just posted. And you can sign up. So I guess aside from that, thanks, Dustin. Dustin just posted that he enjoyed the book club. So that was awesome. Aside from that, if you're not familiar with our Tableau user group community, right, this is the Milwaukee Tableau user group. There's also a Madison Tableau user group. And then together we created like a virtual Wisconsin Tableau user group. So they kind of used to operate independently, but in 2021, we changed all of that. We've been coordinating a lot more. So your Wisconsin Tableau user group meetings occur also every quarter, but they occur kind of the first month of every quarter. So January, April, July, October. Milwaukee is then the month after that, and then you have Madison. So we do have a variety of different topics coming up. We've got advanced analytics at our next Milwaukee meeting. We're going to kind of talk about some layering in analytics into like your standard dashboards that you might already have, tips and tricks, all sorts of great events. So I'm actually going to post some links where you can register for the upcoming Wisconsin user group in April, and then the Milwaukee event that we're having in May. Our May event, we've already locked in our speaker. It's Dr. Phil. We refer to him as Dr. Phil, but he's a data scientist and he's going to be speaking about how data science and data visualization and communication all come together in like this beautiful Tableau package. So that's that second link I just sent. The Milwaukee TUG Q2 event is where Dr. Phil will be speaking. So hopefully you can join. There's also an upcoming event next week about data and diversity and exploring a variety of data visualizations. Just posted a link to that event as well. So lots of awesome Tableau events going on. Okay. And actually, you can find even better all of our events, and you can subscribe to this page so that you can get alerted to any event going on at this link that I just, people can't copy them, but can you click on them? Hopefully you can click on all the links and just open them up in a browser right now. No need to wait. Okay, great. I will be sending all of this information out in a follow-up email afterwards, but why wait for awesomeness? Just register now. Okay, so aside from all of that, we're now going to do a quick segment about Tableau certification exam questions. So what's kind of cool about this segment is that it's a way to not only test your Tableau knowledge, but also show you how easy it might be to become Tableau certified. So I'm going to turn this over to Patrick for a few questions, but don't leave the meeting if you're thinking about it, because we still have giveaways. So over to Patrick.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And I can share my screen, right?
Yeah.
Or do you have it queued up?
I do have it. Somewhere. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great.
Let me try and share mine because then I can build it real quick.
Cool.
All right. Am I sharing?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So real quick, one of the things that we thought would be cool to do this year is share some exam questions from the Desktop Certified Associate exam. So this is one of the certifications that Tableau offers. And if you go out to Tableau's website, there's some information about the certification, and there's this great exam guide that you can download. It's got some information in here about the structure of the exam, some additional resources, the skills that they're testing, and then it's got a series of sample questions. In the Wisconsin Tableau user group, we went through questions 1 through 3, I believe, last time. And so we're going to start with question 4 here. And question 4 actually lets you start to actually build something in Tableau. So when you sit down to take the exam, you'll be at the computer and you'll have Tableau open, and you'll need to connect to the sample supersort data subset, which if you go to the exam guide, you can download it. I, of course, have already downloaded it. And then you can start to answer some of the questions that are related to that data set. So question 4 here is, what is the percent of total sales for the home office customer segment in July of 2012? So I'm going to go to my Tableau workbook here, and I've got the question repeated here in a dashboard. And so once you've connected the data, which I've already done, just to shorten things up here, is I'm going to look to the question to guide how I build out my workbook. So I need to know total sales. I need to know customer segment. Those are a couple things that I'll start with. So I'm just going to look for a customer segment. I'm going to drag that on here. I'm going to look for sales, and I'm going to drag that on here. And again, it's asking for what is the percent of total sales for home office customer segment in July of 2012? So there's a date element there. So I'm going to look for the order date, which I see here, drag that on here, and I'm going to look for month and year, July 2012. Got that on here. I'm going to add labels here so I can see what I'm looking at. And right now I've got sum of sales on here. I want percent of total sales. So I'm going to go down, do a quick table calculation, percent of total. And for home office, I can see that it's 23.97. I go back to my question and I see that that is B, and that happens to be the correct answer. In that PDF, if you do scroll to the end, it does give you the answers. So that is the answer to question 4. There's definitely a lot more that you could do with this visualization, but they're not grading you on how it looks or the style. You know, obviously, if you wanted to make it easier to read, you would maybe do some things around adding in color to differentiate that. And there, as some of the presenters have pointed out to you, there's a number of different ways that you can usually build things in Tableau and get to an answer or get to what you're looking for. There might be other ways, but again, when you're sitting down taking the exam, you want to be efficient. You want to try and get to the answer as quickly as possible so that you can move on, especially for some of these easier questions. So let's go on to question 5. And again, it's using the same data set. Find the top 10 product names by sales within each region. And then which product is ranked number 2 in both the central and west regions? So again, I'm going to let the question kind of guide how I build the workbook. I'm going to need product names, going to need sales, and I'm going to need region. So I'm going to start with region, drag that on here. Then I'm going to look for product name. I'll add that. Sure, we'll add all. And then I'm going to need sales again. So I'm going to add that. And what I could do right now is I could just sort this. Again, the question was for Central and West. There's one more element that I missed here, and that is 2011. So I'm going to go back here. Again, I'm going to find order date and look for years, 2011. Okay, so now I could simply look at this, and I see in Central it's this copier, and I could just start scrolling, and I could go all the way down here, look for somewhere in the West, and I can see the Sharp copier is number 2 in the West. So I go back to my question, and it says which product is ranked number 2 in both the Central and West regions, and see the Sharp copier. So I could be done right there. Again, the idea is to be as quick as and efficient. You might find some other efficient ways to do this as well. Again, you could one thing that you could do, which I've already sort of started here for us, is you could create a calculated field. I've created this index field, so just simply putting an index in the parentheses. Then I can add that to my visual here, and I'm going to make a couple of quick changes in here to the table calculation. I want to compute using specific dimensions, region, and product name, and I'm going to want to restart my index with every region. So you can see the numbers over here. The index has changed, and you can see number 2 here. But then I also want to just make sure that I'm sorting by sales, sum of sales, and I want to do descending. Okay, and so now if I take index and bring it up here to filter, I'm going to actually I'll just do that for now. I'm going to change index to continuous to make it easier to filter, and I'm just going to say, show me the top 10. And I've got region in there, but basically, I know we're at time, but basically if you filter, so you've got just the Central and the West in here, now you've got it in one view, and you can see, again, you can see the answer more clearly. So I'm going to, I know that was quick, I see that we're at time, so I'm going to turn it back to Brandy so that we can get to the last items on our agenda.
All right. It's the moment that everyone's been hanging around for, the giveaway. As we do with all of our meetings, we give away some fun prizes. So today we are giving away 2 $50 gift certificates to Tableau store. So you can buy like a book or socks or t-shirts or whatever. And a third bonus prize to a special winner who's going to be walking away with a license to Tableau's e-learning platform. So Josh, if we have some winners, please tell us who they are.
All right, one second. Do you want to go ahead and just shift everybody into the answered section just so it makes this a little easier? I don't know if it does it by time. I want to get one list of it.
We can't.
All those.
Okay. Well, I guess, okay, I'm going to just have to type a random answer. Just.
Okay. Done.
All right.
All right, looks like Bruce Landay is our first winner.
Nice. Good job, Bruce.
All right. Then our second winner is Ginger Castle.
Nice.
I'll put the names. You got those?
I'm writing them down.
Okay.
So, yeah, thanks.
Congratulations to you guys.
Yeah, and we'll
Brandy
need one
mentioned.
more for our bonus prize.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
But also while Josh is picking out our third and final winner, I posted a few more links today. If you're not aware, the Milwaukee Tableau user group has a LinkedIn group where we occasionally post meeting reminders, fun content, and things like that. We also have a Slack space where you can join to, if you guys have additional questions, Slack is a really great space to do that. You can ask your questions, you can get feedback on like, hey, Sherry, how did you, deal with scrolling on that dashboard where, you're using 6 different data sources, or, asking those types of questions, or like, hey, what advice, do people have on making my visualization just pop a little bit more, right? So whatever your questions are, Slack's a great space for that. But who's our third and final winner?
Lorna Dilly, congratulations.
Nice.
Third and final winner for the bonus one.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Register for our next event. We'll be giving away more stuff. You never know what we're going to give away. I feel like we've got some fun things, special things planned. But thank you so much for spending your Friday lunch hour with us. Definitely continue, to chat with us and have a conversation. Email, all of our fun events, LinkedIn, what have you. And thank you to all of our amazing presenters who shared their knowledge with us today. It was just phenomenal to see what you can do. So thank you, everyone.
It was wonderful. Thanks, everybody.